Well, hello everyone. It's official, I'm back. It's Dr. Tracy. Let me adjust this just a little bit here. How's everybody doing? Good morning. Happy Friday to you as I get ready for another session of 16 and me. Who is ready to jump into this amazing discovery as people are logging on? Let me just see. Hello, Lucia down in South Africa. It's nice to see you. Hello, Tatiana. It's also nice to see you. Thank you so much for logging in. As people are beginning to log in, and before I get started on this super fun show every week, just a couple of announcements. We're starting to, first up to all my loved ones in Texas, stay warm. Nepal, if you're watching this, get on a plane and come out here, warm up over here. Just a couple of things, as the world is starting to open up more and more, we're starting to begin to live and breathe and move a lot more. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be announcing all the information about the Discover the Divine Conference that's going to be taking place in beautiful Greece. And so we're super excited. Hello, Sarah. It's nice to see you. Hello, Bogum. It's nice to see you. Let me see. Happy Menendez, is that you? It's really nice to see all of you guys, everybody logging on. Philippou, nice to see you. Alicia, it's nice to see you. Let me know where you're logging in from. Okay, so we have just a few more minutes. I have a great guest on. And for those of you who are logging in, if you ever want to be a guest on the show, just want to do it really quickly. You guys can all hear me, right? Remember, I can't hear you, but I can only see you. Hello, Janet. It's nice to see you. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, just let me know. Send me a PM, because it is so healing and empowering for people to be able to watch other people disarm that 16 and be able to step into a higher potentiality of self-living. All right. Here we go. It's time to get started. All right, my name is Dr. Tracy, and I want to welcome you to 16 and Me. Who's ready for a little bit more 16 and Me? So for those of you who maybe this is your first time and you're going like, who in the heck is 16? Well, 16, it began like this. I really believe that within every woman, can't speak on behalf of men, but on behalf of every woman, there's about 17 different personas inside of us. And we all know each other, don't worry. We all get along fabulously, right? Except for 16. And so who is 16? 16 is that persona inside of us that has like an ego out to here, issues out to here, insecurities and fears out to here. And it's this inner voice that attacks us from within, that if we're not aware that this voice exists, it has the power to derail our entire life. Now, in the world of psychology, they professionally call it the pathological critic. In the world of Buddhism, they call it Maya. In some spiritual circles, they call it the shadow feminine. For me, I call her 16. And I had a vision one day that one time, if there are in fact 17 personas within us, that I had this vision that it was like at the Last Supper, and there were 17 seats at the table. And as I looked at this table, I realized that 16 was taking up about 15 of the seats. So no wonder self-sabotaging was so easy for me. It was because it was super noisy up here because of all the chanting that was going on. Let's see. Hello, my Linda Kemble. Let's see. I want to be in your video. Okay, so PM me and we'll get you in the queue for an interview. Hello, Mrs. Glove. It's nice to see you. All right. So one day in my prayer and meditation time, I was like, okay, so why is her name 16? And the answer that I got is because 1 plus 6 equals 7, and 7 is a magical and perfect number, right? And so what that means is that, hello Andrea, hello Rachel, nice to see you. So what that means is that we don't want to go through life, and it's a word that you hear me say, you have to go into an expansion. And it's not a reinvention of self, because when you reinvent yourself, it means that you're so different than who you were before. An expansion means that you're going to, gosh dang it, let me just say it honestly. Sometimes we go through such great aches and pains that all the therapy in the world is never going to make us be able to completely leave it behind. It might not have its sting power. But it may, just like if you do something that breaks the law, that's going to be on your record for a long time, no matter what. That's going to be there. Well, there are some emotional traumas that they're just going to be there for a while. Hello from Armenia. And when we try to pretend that they're not there, and we start holding our breath through life, and we start white knuckling our life, this is the birthing place for 16 to take over. So on this show, my goal, one of the things that I realized in my personal expansion of my life, is that I always thought that harsh inner critic voice was me. And what I learned along my empowerment journey is that it's not me. Those are my trauma wounds talking. And those are my trauma wounds that either I have not yet recovered from, I have not yet dealt with, or they're my trauma wounds that basically say, as God is my witness, we are never going back there again. So when anything in life represents a possibility to us of being able to be taken down again, that is the playground for 16. So the goal of our life is not to kick 16 out of our life. The goal of our life is just to realize that she's there, that awful self-sabotage that we talk to ourselves so terribly with. It's not our voice, that's a trauma voice. And the goal is to make that space between you and 16, because that's where healing can take place. So you'll hear me say things like, okay, 16, not today, princess. Because 16 loves to show up at opportunities when we're just about to step into the next best definition of self. 16 likes to show up. Oh my gosh. So here's what I wanted to talk about today. Here's your lesson when it comes to 16. So one of the things that I mentioned about 16, that pathological critic, that Maya, that shadow feminine, that harsh inner judge, which around here we call her 16, is that depending on how early that trauma wound happened, that tough voice, that critical voice, can be so embedded in your emotional system that you think that it's actually your thoughts. But again, they're not your thoughts. So one of the things that one of the ways that you really begin to create that space and that separation is you need to learn to hear the voice of 16, that traumatized voice. And the way that I like to say it is that, 16, she is such a princess. She's such a diva. And she has quite an extensive wardrobe. Would you like to hear a little bit about her wardrobe? Meaning how she shows up as? Are you ready? I have my list with my initials on it, so I know it's mine. Are you ready? Okay. So sometimes 16 wakes up in the morning, she goes into her emotional closet, and she puts on her judger dress. Okay, by a show of hands, just let me know how many of you gets dressed up as the judger. Sometimes she could be the shamer. She could be the perfectionist. She could be the emotional hoarder, where, in other words, the only emotions in the room that matter are her complete miserable ones. She can be the panicker. Let's see a show of hands, but if you guys can relate to this. She could be the great divider. And the great divider means that she will divide you from the good and the good in life. She will divide you from love. She will divide you from success. She will divide you from sanity. All right. She could put on her dress of the isolator, where she just thinks that it's you against the entire world. She can be the great abandoner, where like nobody's there for you and making you feel completely alone in life. Oh, she could be the bar raiser, that no matter what you do and what success, big or small, that you experience, at the second that that's over, the very first thing she's saying is like, well, you know what? Don't let that be the biggest moment of your life. Like, she never lets you just wallow in a moment of success. Tasha, hold that thought, Tasha, because we'll talk about that. She could be the doubter, right? Making you doubt that people love you, doubt that you're successful, doubt that you have a brain, doubt that you're smart, doubt that your weight is okay, doubt that you're loved. Anybody relate to that one? She could be the terrified. And that's what this is. Oh, and she's absolutely terrified of everything. 16 can show up sometimes as the victim. Poor me. Everything is bad. Okay, right? 16 can show up with an ego from here to Mars, when she just thinks that her way is the only way and has to give pushback to anybody that might make her feel insecure because she doesn't have all the answers. Okay. She can be, okay, Andrea, I know that you're online. She could be the finger pointer. Like Andrea's 16, who points her finger at you all the time. She could be, which is mine, the hip holding head bubbler, telling you like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And more and more. So one of the most important things that we need to do is you need to learn the costumes, the emotional costumes that your 16 shows up in, because one of your power tools is literally be able to create that space where you're able to go, okay, not today, 16. And of course, we need 16 because that 16 is that contrast in us. It's telling us where we need to grow and how we need to step into our to kind of like release some of these trauma wounds that are inside of us. But if we're not aware that 16 exists, she can completely sabotage our life. Is any of this making sense? I hope so. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to be bringing on my guest of the week. And we're going to have a nice, wonderful, funny, entertaining, healing conversation about her 16. And the reason that I love to have guests every week is because, my 16 has such a vast wardrobe. I could just sit around and talk about mine. But it's also enjoyable and relieving to hear about other people's, don't you think? So I just want to share before I bring her on. And Tasha, if you'll go into a standby position, I'll bring you on in just a second. So I've been going through some pretty intense stuff the past few weeks or something of that nature. And I realized that my 16 had a new entry in my life. And you want to know what it is? I would be sound asleep. It would be the middle of the night. And I would wake up. And there she was at the end of the bed. You want to talk about this? Would you like to talk about this? I think we need to talk about this. I think if we don't talk about this, that, something really bad is going to happen. She's like, oh my God, about something really bad is going to happen. And so I think we need to talk about this right now. 16, it's 3 a.m. Yes, I know. But you know what? if you don't put this in every ounce of your brain, you're not going to be able to control the entire situation. And if you don't get to control everything is going to fall apart. So obviously, you don't think you're strong enough to take on this entire situation. And the next thing you know, I'm feeling all this pressure to take on something that I'm powerless against. That my goal and what feels right to me is to step into an acceptance and a faith and a journey, not to have to be all in control of everything. So I had to put her to bed so many nights, night after night. Not tonight, 16. Right now, what's best to me is not to give in one more ounce of thought to this thing that's beyond my control, but instead to rest my body and sleep. Does any of this relate to you guys? I hope so. So that was my 16 who's showing up to me this week. She wakes me up in the middle of the night, wants to have me solve all the world's problems that are beyond me. Okay, let's start to bring some people here in the room. Have a great guest. She's a great 16 who has a huge wardrobe, likes to show up in different forms and fashions. You know her. She just started her own IGTV show this week at the Mrs. Globe. She's our current reigning Mrs. Globe class Curvey. And you know, one of the reasons why I find it enjoyable to bring on so many of our pageant delegates, for those of you who don't know, I own the Mrs. Globe organization, is because sometimes people look at women who are have accomplished certain goals, and they believe that they don't suffer from certain things that all of us do. So it's really fun to get in there and learn that we're not alone in our journey. Okay, I have to click that, and we're going to ask Tasha to come on, and we're going to send a request. We're going to send, here we go, waiting. Here we go. So Tasha's about to head out of the country. I hear her logging on. Hello, beautiful.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
You are so funny.
I don't know if I am, but thank you. Hey, listen, we have a lot to chat about because I know that this week you took a big step in dreaming, and you launched your new show, which was fantastic. And I'm not going to say that because I was your first guest, but yeah, you launched your new show. And okay, the end story is that it turned out great. Did 16 show up at all on the journey?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you introduce us to your 16, and what was she wearing this week?
You know, I paused too. Oh, there you are. Okay. My 16's wardrobe this week was very interesting. It was just a huge wardrobe of like a condescendingness. I don't even know if that's a word. Just kind of like,
oh, she showed up as Mrs. Condescending.
yes.
Okay. All right.
And yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. I want to hear.
And so I felt like everything I was doing, I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to be okay? Or is this not okay? Like, it was like I was walking on eggshells in things that I know that I'm good at, but I was just literally, she was just like, you shouldn't even be doing that. Like, what are you know, it's just this whole, like, just every idea I had was like, she's going to hate it. It's not going to go well. Like, I mean, it was just like, oh my God, like everything. And so it just kind of was this place where I was like, you know what, Tasha, just be seen and not heard. Just don't do anything, like, you know, because it's safer than it not working out. And so just really this condescending, like, weird spirit, it was just horrible, you know. And so that's why I kind of, even when you were affirming some things, I was like, thank you so much, that's so timely, because she's like, no, it's not timely, you know.
Yeah, and you know, there's a couple of things just based on that, and let me just do a little breakout for the people who are walking. So
watching. So one of the things that, the whole goal in being able to silence the 16 is first off to recognize, to give her a seat at the table. My problem was I gave her like 15 seats at the
Yes.
table, right?
She has
She
a
just
bed at my table, okay? A bed. She has a chase
great.
lounge at my table.
Great. Yeah. So so our goal is to really respect that, okay, she gets one seat at the table, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with us having that voice that gives us that check. Is this the best idea that I can step forward with? Is there a better one out there? But the difference between us having that check within ourselves, our first voice, our personal level of excellence, and 16s is that, when I look at a project and I'm like, am I putting my best foot forward? Is this it? I'm not afraid to go to other people and say, can you give me your 2 cents on that? Can you give me your 2 cents? And there's a positive energy behind it, versus when 16's talking, it's like,
Mhm.
really? That's all you got? And so one of the, yeah, right? So one of the first ways that we need to become aware, make that space to understand that's not my voice, that's my trauma or my fear talking. That if I look at a situation and say, can I do it better? And I feel good, that's me. That's my authentic self.
Mhm.
That's the next potentiality of me. If you're feeling like, you go from somebody who's going to be running this great big show to suddenly this minute nothingness in the corner, that like, why did you even get out of bed and have the nerve to take up oxygen today?
Mhm.
Then there's a really good chance that that is 16. And that's the whole thing, is the power of 16 is more powerful than people even recognize. We don't need people on the outside to become abusive to us, because we are probably doing it to ourselves first. So I'm gonna challenge you on something, and if you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer. If you were to try to say, because every 16 has a root,
Mhm.
every 16 has a root somewhere in your life. Something happened, and it could be like the size of a mustard seed. Um, are you able to just, in your conscious memory right now, understand where you learned to doubt yourself? Or dreams became doubting? Or is there a point that you can back into to go like, wait a minute here?
Yes, I actually know exactly where it comes from, and even and who. And it's something that uh, actually Reclaiming Me is helping me work through and manage. But I know exactly where it comes from, and that's even the voice of that person is even the voice the condescending is in. So it's there was so much of it throughout my life that it's like an automatic. I literally have to be like, shut up, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're like, not today, girlfriend. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like it's
Oh no, I used to drop F-bombs and everything. Shut
okay, okay. Because I
up.
was like, I'm gonna need you just to, you're not, no. And so I know exactly where it comes from. So I'm like, okay, I have to, and it's not 16. It's interesting because it's only when I'm trying to I guess, elevate, right? And that's usually when so if I'm just kind of doing, I guess metaphorically, the 9 to 5 everyday life and just kind of, not make a difference here or there, wear gray, whatever, and I'm speaking metaphorically, then, she's cool. But the moment I try to like elevate, rise, do better, then that's when it's the disqualification. And what are you even doing? Like, you shouldn't even be doing all that. Like, seriously, you're going to interview someone with a PhD and you barely finished your degree. Like, I mean, just, like this condescending, like, how dare you ask her, like, so that's when it usually happens, when the elevation, that when I try to elevate, that's when she.
Yeah, because there's a threat in there. But you just pointed out a really good, like, we need to be detectives when it comes to curing ourselves of being bashed by 16. But you just pointed out a good thing is that she keeps notes. You know, like there you are, like, oh, and she's a compare that, like, luckily my compare doesn't show up anymore, but when I was young, my 16 would show up and just compare me to everyone, which is such a losing phase. Well, they have this and you don't have that, and you
Mhm.
have that and they don't. You know, it's like one way or the other.
Yeah.
Let's see. Silver Lining says self-doubt, basically. Well, absolutely. You know, we don't doubt ourselves. We're taught to doubt ourselves. This is the truth of the matter. And so whenever 16 is shouting, let's see. Taylor says, yes, she keeps. Oops, it just went off. Wow. She keeps notes. Yeah, she does totally keep notes. And you know, a really good exercise is, as you're beginning to get in touch with your 16, is keep that journal, you know. And it's no problem to actually just like journal out the thoughts that you hear 16 saying, like, who in the heck do you think you are to pursue this dream? Don't you remember your history? And shall I show you your history? And I remember, you
Mhm.
know, because like I said, she keeps notes and she keeps history books. um, and one of the steps to healing, we don't have a chance to go into it today, is really reaching a point that you understand that this is your life and this is your journey, and you know, nobody has the right to sit around and judge us. And but that's easier said than done to reach that point. It really is.
Well, what's
So
hard is the humans. The humans, I'm okay with doing that too. Like now, I'm like, I don't care what you people think. Like, okay, you don't live my life, but it's her because she has like an inside seat. She has like season tickets in a spot. So the humans, I think I've dealt with, but like her, she has like season tickets. Like, and I'm just like, you know.
yeah, and when she has her season tickets, Tasha, does she ever like bring her fan club with her in your mind's eye, where you know you're sitting there and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so horrible," and she thinks so too, and she thinks so too. Go, go, go! You're so
Yeah.
horrible, right? And she campaigns. It's called globalizing. She pits the
Yeah.
world against you. Okay, so when you were, you know, getting ready and having to push through this, did you pull up any tools to thought stop the 16 and to be able to silence her? And if so, why don't you share those with our audience?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I mean, gosh, there's so many just planks and there's so many tools. But I mean, really, I kind of listened to her for a little bit, and I even spoke it out to a few people. And I think being in the space of safe people and having a people that are accountable, that are on that know the journey I'm on, and they're just kind of able to say, and I was even able to recognize what was cool is that I actually was able to say, you know what? I need to like take a breather because my 16's tripping and I need to go ahead and put her in check real quick. Okay. So
I
hopefully,
love that. I love that. I mean, I hope that those of you who are listening, how powerful that simple statement is like, dude, 16's tripping today. And what that does, it just creates that space. And all of a sudden, you're kind of off the hook. You're off of having to
yeah.
tread that water. You're off of you know, having to keep running after her or trying to silence her, when all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're like, well, I'm not the one who's in a panic zone. She is.
She is.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. And it's so funny because your phrase stand down, girlfriend, comes in my head, but I just feel like the way she acts sometimes, that's just not enough. So I'm like, you need to stop. You're tripping. You're messing up my whole situation right now. And I'll kind of do my little intermission, do whoever I'm communicating with. And then I come back and it's like, regroup. Okay, hi, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it works. And the great thing, I think, in our tribe of women and in the BC community and whatnot is because 16 is such we recognize that, oh, she's here. That we're able just to look past things so much and be like, okay, am I talking to you, or am I talking to 16 right now?
Right.
And you kind of shake your head out and you go, oh my God, you're talking to 16, sorry. Because, again, going back to the serious note of it, is that the messages that 16 carries all come from a trauma wound in our past. And next week I'll share one of the ways that 16 was just totally haunting me because of a childhood trauma, abandonment, and how, to this day, it is so hard for me to rely on people because of something that happened once, especially if I go into a pain cycle. I'm like, it's going to last forever, And I'm like, okay, nothing lasts forever, Tracy. Come on, 16. Not today, princess. Well, for all of our viewers, I hope that you enjoyed our show today. Taylor says, oh my gosh, 16 is tripping. I love that. It is. Alicia Palaz, thank you so much for joining us. Mrs. North America, thank you so much for joining us. It's so powerful to be able to say, I'm not okay, give me a second. This is so important. This is just taking pause. For me, I say, I just, stop and take breath, because I'm a professional breath holder, and yeah, you take pause, you take breath. And when you do that, that moment can stop the 16 internal attack. So listen, Tasha, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your condescending 16. And so those of you who have a condescending 16, know that she has a cousin in Tasha's condescending 16. And there's some tools out there to silence the 16. All right, guys, lots of love here from California, and where Tasha is in Washington. Again, those of you who want to be a guest on the 16 show, PM me. We have openings starting from about 3 weeks from now. We have lots of exciting guests coming up, and we will see you next week on 16 and Me. And remember, when it comes to self-love, yours is absolutely non-negotiable. And how many seats at the table does 16 have? 1. Lots of love, guys. See you next week.